Producing content, not easy. Creating a business plan to reach the masses, even harder. That's why Good To Go Media is hosting Collab Media and Film in Redlands, California, this September 8 and 9, where you, the content creator, can learn all about business plans, distribution, legal guidelines, and more. Presenters like Mark Butler and Randy Jameson will walk you through the tough parts of the content creation process. And if you need a financial boost for your project, the event is having a pitch competition where you can receive a prize of up to $20,000 to bring your ideas to life. Go to goodtogomedia.org to register and use code DISRUPTIVE for 20% off your ticket. Again, goodtogomedia.org, discount code DISRUPTIVE.
Baby, we're walking down the street. I said, smell that. You smell that smell? She's like, yeah, it doesn't smell very good. I said, no, hold on a second. You smell it? I smell cigarettes. I smell a little weed. I smell some alcohol, that, baby, that is the smell of ministry, like that's a beautiful smell, and that's why I've kind of trained myself to gravitate more towards, what would be considered undesirable. But I believe that's where Jesus went. I'm trying to learn how to, kind of have the reputation of being amongst the tax collectors or amongst the sinners, if you would,
Driving through Albany, Georgia, you can notice a stark contrast between East Side and West Side Slappy Boulevard. On the east side, you see houses in need of a touch-up, businesses vacant or in survival mode, and a community rebuilding its core, looking for a better life while trying to afford the 6th highest utility bills in the country. Jump over to the west side of the tracks, and you'll find a different situation. Newly built apartments, Chipotle, Starbucks, Target, and ever-expanding business lists coming here to attract the professionals graduating from the east side, Albany State University. In the middle of the Bible Belt, one cannot forget the number of churches Albany has. Ever heard of Facing the Giants or Fireproof? Sherwood Baptist, the church behind them, is here serving the community. Zion and Vine, the other 2 megachurches in town, also seek out to serve the least of these. See, Albany has a growing population that relocates here from surrounding communities, such as Americus, Baconton, yes, that's a real name, and Sasser, also a real name. But the people that come here often find themselves relocating to the west part of town, or north of it, where businesses have grown, the country club is located, and crime rates are not 3 times the national average, as in the east and south side. So that's why today on Disruptive Adventism, we talk with Joshua Nelson, a pastor ministering on the east side of the city, on how to rebuild and revive a community through church programs and collaboration with city officials. When I asked him what he thought when he relocated to Albany, this is what he had to say.
I've lived here for 2 years, and, Albany is a very historic city, especially with civil rights. It's a place known for, Dr. King coming here, being arrested, learning from Albany, from the Albany movement, and actually having, quote unquote, failed here. Actually, it forced him to learn what he did wrong, and it turned him into the man that we know today. So Albany has a stigma of kind of being a vacuum for just kind of mediocrity in a way, and it's kind of the stigma of the city.
And that stigma can be seen by the type of questions people ask or the Google algorithm on the web. If you search for Albany, Georgia on Google, the number 1 question asked is, what is the crime rate in Albany? When he first moved to Albany, Josh told me that he was battling with questions from people, such as, why are you here? Or, are you military? There are 2 naval bases close to Albany, one in the outskirts of the city and another one in Columbus, about 70 miles away. People didn't like saying they were from Albany. Their pride in the city had vanished, he told me. Some of it's coming back, says Josh, as businesses try to come rebuild and restore the historic community. But people are not looking for public officials only to rebuild the city. They're looking at their ministers too. Having a couple of megachurches in the area, Albany residents look intently at those who proclaim to follow Jesus and see how they decide to help. But it's hard to do so, says Josh, when your job does not require any of that.
You're not getting paid to do anything extra. You know what I'm saying? The conference is expecting you to do, to go to church, to preach, to do prayer meeting, visit members. It's not really in your job description per se to have to go into the community. So you kind of can get caught up in just doing, the normal on paper job description that's been given to you.
Churches without community, though, die.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a vision for the place. I mean, you can't do evangelism without knowing your community, right? So I think to me, it just was a natural step to really be ingrained and deeply involved with what was happening in my city. For as the city grows, I know my church would grow.
How was your experience then relocating to a city that you kind of have weariness? You've been here 2 years. What have you discovered since then?
I've learned a lot about myself, just battling with, if I should stay or should I go. I've dealt with just the sadness of leaving where I was before, wondering if I even want to stay here. So kind of taking about a year to really say, okay, fine, I'm going to actually, say this is my home and get in the muck and begin to do something. So, you kind of deal with that, but there's just been a lot of trying to understand the people, trying to understand where I fit in. A lot of that takes time, and oftentimes you get frustrated because, as a pastor, you're just like, and as you're young, you want to just get out there and just really, save souls, but you're having to deal with the fact that not everybody is at the level you're at or at the mindset you're at yet to do these things, or have been studying the same way you've been studying and don't see the importance of being in the community, don't see the importance of, mingling with people or whatever else. You're having to kind of like back up and bring people along instead of just push forward by yourself. That's kind of the hardest thing right now.
Since that was one of the hardest things right now, dealing with people and members that may not want to participate, I decided to ask Josh what was one of his hardest experiences dealing with church members.
Well, I mean, I've had some tough experiences with the storm. We definitely did.
Oh, I forgot to mention that Albany is also prone to tornadoes and hurricanes. So
the city came together and
there you go.
Kind of rallied, but I think a storm that brews in the church is probably even more taxing for me. And I had a situation where, one of the members just didn't see eye to eye. He was, being very disruptive, but in the negative sense, I would say, and just would not, follow protocol, and ended up, getting so upset he couldn't take it. Got up and he just was talking so much out of turn. Just said to me, you're the reason the church is not growing. You're the reason the church is failing. And him and his wife got up and they just they left. Hadn't never seen him since. And that was a like wow experience. The whole meeting at the time was just like kind of it's like in awe that they would do that. But stuff like that. That dealing with pushing these ideas that to them seem pushing against their tradition, but actually for you is just you're just moving from the call of God, and people are resisting to that. You see how the devil is at work, and it really is discouraging. And if you're not close to God, it can really break you. But I've had a lot of those times. Depression is just like really sad, but having to get through those type of experiences. Yeah.
And that hard thing, dealing with people that don't want to work in the community, people from his own church, push him to go work with the public sector and find some partners there. After the break, we find out who Josh is working with right now and how that started a fruitful relationship that led to the Hope Garden. You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream. So today in Disruptive Adventism, we're learning about how to get involved with the community and develop healthy relationships. Joshua Nelson, a pastor in Albany, Georgia, continues with us mentioning who he has been involved with and how that relationship ended up helping him to get a garden for his community and his church. Who are you working with right now, city-wise, in order to make a change, to make a difference in this community?
I try to get involved with anybody and everybody. Right now I'm sitting on a committee with the chief of police. Who we meet every other week. I'm sitting on the gang task force right now. I meet with my city commissioner regularly. Dealing with a number of young activists in the city. People that I network with or kind of see, Boys and Girls Club, Parks and Rec, these people that I interact with, even different farmers for the initiative we're doing with the garden, So I'm just really involved with a lot of different people and have this network. So if I need something or they need something, we kind of have this fluid relationship.
You said that you're working with farmers in order to kind of help with the garden. What is that initiative?
So we started something called the Hope Garden probably a few months ago, I guess it's been now. And, it started honestly just from a simple idea, just wanting to feed our community. I wasn't really sure about gardening, wasn't sure how the church was going to accept it. But we had so many different people coming to us. And I could not deny that God was doing something with this garden project. And so people kind of pushed us forward. And so we wrote a grant actually to Home Depot, who was encouraging us to do so. And we got like $5,000 from them to build these garden beds and do other things, to actually make this thing sustainable. And so, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Albany is a huge food desert. The other day, man, I was trying to find a grocery store. I was so frustrated. Like I had to go to Walmart. There was no other grocery store to go to, where I was in the South Side. And, especially, let alone the East Side where our church is. And so we felt like we got to do something, set a precedent for other churches as well, that you can't just be in this, space and not bless the people. And so that's been our focus.
And that focus is paying off. Josh told us a story about something that happened a couple of days ago when he was visiting the garden in his church.
My memory's always shot, but I'll think about what just happened yesterday. Okay. So maybe it may have been a better story, but yesterday, we have a daycare. And there was a young woman and her two kids, a boy and a girl. They were walking home, and I noticed they were walking home. They, usually parents come pick their kids up. So I said they must live nearby. I never seen them before. So I stopped them and I said, "Hey, where do y'all live?" And they said, "We live right down the street." And I said, "Whoa, right down the street, like right, like literally could see their house from the church." And they said, "Yeah, this was our first day bringing our kids to the daycare." I said, "Wow, I'm the pastor here, whatever." And I said, "Okay, cool, And then I said, "Hey, you're right here. You want to check out our garden?" And so I brought them over to the garden, and the kids were looking at the garden. And it was a funny thing. The little girl, she picked a cherry tomato, and she hadn't washed it and nothing like that, but she just took it and put it in her mouth, and ate it. It was just so cute seeing that. That she would just, and she was like, "This is so good," And Mom was like, "No, stop." But we mingled, we talked a little bit, and she expressed a desire to come to church. She really, she actually asked her son, "Hey, ask the pastor, what time are y'all meeting for church?" And so that just to me was just something that just so simple. I've always said, if you're going to walk on my property and I don't know who you are, it's not going to happen. Like I'm going to find out who you are. You cannot park your car on my property without getting a track on your car. If you're going to be in my space, I'm going to find a way to mingle with you and talk with you and make that connection. She's right there, so found out she's going to school for culinary arts. I said, well, hey, you could practice, get some food from the garden and practice. So just that to me was just a powerful experience. And you never know what will come of these things, just planting seeds, left and right and seeing how God will grow it.
You may be thinking, planting seeds, yeah, that's the Christian answer. That's what usually happens. We create a project and it's just planting seeds. But some people look for the results. When I asked Josh, hey, what are the results that you're looking for? He didn't answer because his focus is not on the results. It's on the motivation that is leading us to do things for the community and not expect anything in return.
I think it's deep in the core of who we are as Adventists. I think that, we have to understand that if we want people to wait for Christ to come back and go to this kingdom that we talk about, heaven, they need to be attracted to what that is. And so what I'm saying is, let's live the life. Let's be the people that will be existing in heaven. So if I'm not loving my neighbor, if I'm not, concerned with the fact that there is, mass incarceration happening, if I'm not concerned with, the drug trafficking or even the people trafficking that's happening here in Georgia, if I'm turning my back on orphans or whoever it is, how can I say, well, now come to this kingdom that I'm going to be at? Like, I don't want to be with you. You don't even love me, So I think that we have to reevaluate like why we do what we do. Like, why do we want people to be saved so bad? Like, is it for their own good? Yeah, it's for their good. It's because I love them, because I want them to be happy and be saved. And so if you see them suffering now, well, why do you want my soul to be saved if you're not even caring for my life right now? And so, it goes back to even the Sabbath, and understanding the Sabbath is ultimately a foreshadowing of the utopia that we want to create, and that's going to happen in the earth made new. I mean, we're talking about a time when you cannot buy or sell, when you are not, lording your money over someone who doesn't have money. You're all equal right now. Isaiah 58 is all about social justice. So I think that we have to rethink like why we're doing what we're doing. We often want to proof text and say we're right, but okay, we're right. Cool. Now, what's the value of that doctrine? What does that doctrine actually do to change someone's life and change the world that we're living in?
What are some of the steps that maybe churches can take in order to start getting involved with the community, start getting involved with the city? There's a bridge there. Sometimes there's a political bridge to kind of go over. And most of the time, one of the biggest struggles is to, kind of convince the membership to be involved. So what are some of the steps that pastors can take in order to, or even members, to start getting involved more often?
To be honest with you, man, I haven't mastered how to convince members. I don't know. I'm trying to just inspire them by, how I live my life, how I do things. A few members are catching on and doing things. I'll definitely praise God for that. But again, I take them back to, really Spirit of Prophecy, man. And the fact that, Ministry of Healing, the famous line, that, the Christ method alone, is the only method that'll really reach people. And that you have to start by mingling with people. And I've always said this. I've said this since I was, pastoring when I was 22. I said, if I see people, I'm going to be there. That's just the simple mentality that I have. Jesus, he had compassion when he saw crowds. His heart just ached for people. And so you see, if it's a fair on Sabbath, if it's a, if it's Walmart, if it's a big, party, whatever I see people, that is where I want to be. And I want to mingle with them. And I want there to be light in the midst of darkness. If I see a bunch of darkness and a bunch of death happening, I want to bring light and life there. A lot of times we run away from that. And so the mentality is not being afraid. Be proud of what you have. Know what you have inside of you. All the Bible says, all the Sabbath schools and AYs, all that stuff you're doing, it's for you to build up yourself and know that you have enough light to go into darkness,
Who influenced you in order to be this way? Because I don't know if you were always like this, that you were always concerned with the other, maybe involved in the community. What was the breaking point that kind of brought you to, understand that this was something necessary in your ministry and necessary for Christians to act onto?
That's a good question, man. I really process that. I mean, I think like I grew up in California, and I grew up very churched, very traditional, very conservative, and I think that I still think in those ways. But I think what has changed has been honestly my passion for, my people in terms of Black people, and seeing, kind of where we are, and finding out that there are things that we can do to change, and that our doctrine actually speaks to these things. And these are things that historically our church has done, And so I don't know really what the breaking point was. I think it's just been, I tell people it's been like a course of, 7-8 years of kind of to becoming this person, reading different books and just kind of how God has kind of, done things. But one thing I will say that was like maybe a couple years ago that kind of really opened up for me, that kind of said exactly what I've been feeling. And I read it in this book, can't remember the name of the book, but it basically said that God, I'm sorry, let me back up. It says the church does not have a mission. Okay. And I was like, what do you mean the church does not have a mission? Yes, we do. Our mission is to go ye therefore. But it says, no, let's think of it this way, that God actually has a mission. And what he has to fulfill his mission is a church, and so we have to basically plug into what God is doing. And so when I began to do that with the Spirit, this is where it took me. He's doing stuff in the city. It's not like we're just in a vacuum. He's doing stuff. Let's plug into what he's doing.
God is doing something in people's hearts, and especially in this city, there's a lot of disparity. You can see it all throughout. You can see it all the way. Why is that? Why do people come and they gravitate towards a certain area of town and not the others? Why haven't we, kind of like defeated the stigma Why is it still there?
Why do we have certain bad parts of town? Like, well, from a city standpoint, it's just because you're trying to cater to the people who are really have the money or have the influence. There was something recently out here in Albany where people on the South Side were like, "Yo, like, what's the plan? What is the plan?" They were calling them out on it. You have to have people who will push the envelope. Because a lot of times people get complacent. And so I think that's where churches step in. Like, if you literally want to bless the place, you believe that God is trying to empower people's lives, you're going to challenge. That's power when you can say as a church, like, yo, we're in the South Side, we're in the East Side, and we're surrounded by poverty, city. Like, what are y'all doing? What is your plan? I think it's just people being complacent and not really addressing what's really happening.
Is it possible for the church to solve those complaints alone?
The church is made, it's in the South. Everybody's kind of affiliated with the church. So, if you combine, if you partner together, I think you can.
So it's necessary to do that partnership.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, right? To say.
Yeah,
that's disruptive.
Yeah, a little bit different, I guess. Yeah. And it's complicated. It's a complicated partnership, I guess.
Well, churches are partnering all the time. Not really with Adventist churches. We don't really do that normally. But my thing is like, hey, I'm not going to be a follower. I'm going to be a leader. So if I see something that's really good, I'm going to join with you. And then I'm going to become the best, and I'm going to show you that we have the best tools already here, to lead this project. Like, you're talking about health. Why wouldn't you come to the Adventist church to find out about health? I was almost appalled and almost disgusted, when I was sitting in a meeting. They're like, yeah, we need to fix the health problem, in the city. I'm like, you haven't talked to the Adventists about that? Like, it's a shame that we don't have that reputation for people to run to us to find out solutions to some of these issues that are in our city, but we haven't thought of it that way. We've thought of it more as, individual, you got to stop eating pork, versus holistic community. If we teach these principles, our community would be different, and they would wonder why do we have these principles? Where do we get this from? And that would turn into a whole other evangelistic, opportunity.
When Josh mentioned eating pork, I laughed a little. But at the same time, I remember how we usually focus on evangelism as a personal, intimate thing, instead of a community transformational matter. We like to get pamphlets, to go to the community, go door to door, instead of inviting them to consistent events about health or other matters. When was the last time your church had a consistent, maybe every 3 months, health event just for the community? Think about that. It's as if we're afraid of growing that we select a small goal, one person, instead of a whole community. And then I started to think about, the health movement around the country. Veganism or CrossFitters, they focus on community instead of only one person. They try to make sure that you're tightly knitted in that community first, instead of trying to convert you to the program. So community is at the center of everything. So I kind of started getting fearful that it was too late for us as Adventists to promote health. So I asked Josh if we could catch up. And what's the difference between us and the health movements out there?
It goes back to, why do we do what we do? Like, why are we so concerned with people's health? Why are we so concerned with physical fitness? What does that do in your spiritual life? What does that do in how you treat each other? Mental health also being a component of that holistic view. I just think we have to reclaim what we have. There are things that people are teaching, but it's not everything. It's not the full meat of what they could be sharing. And I think that once people begin to see what we have, they recognize, like, wow, like this, it's there, it's right there. So, and you're right. We've kind of been one-upped by many, many different organizations, but, I don't think it's too late.
It's not too late. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we can still reclaim that. As you say, I think reclaiming Christianity, reclaiming our Adventism, I think is part of it. It's part of like shaking it up, making it different, updating our language. I think that those things can help. Why do you laugh? Why do you?
Because our jargon is so Adventist, man. Like, we can't help ourselves sometimes. How we say things, what we do. It's a culture. It really is a culture, and you have to remember that you could tell someone who's who's used to being in the Adventist bubble, how they talk and things they say. It's like they cannot break out of it, even when they're in a space with other people who are not of Adventism, But I'm learning how to be able to just speak, be all things to all men, really learn how to speak their language and then put my language in there to kind of help them kind of see another side of things. It's a beautiful art, but we have to develop that if we're going to really reach the masses. We can't just stay in our bubble,
Tell me a little bit more about your family. You mentioned that you had 2 children. You have, small children there, and how are they, the move or like coming into this area, maybe hearing about a lot of the things that people hear about Albany, crime rates, different things. Do they feel safe? How have you managed that situation? Or, kind of explain to your wife or your daughter, your son, like, how things work, like, and that we actually need to make a difference with troubled, individuals, or like, when individuals have been unjustly treated by police department or, city authorities or whatever it is.
Well, my son is really still young, but my daughter, I'd usually take her with me. I've taken her with me, going just pushing a stroller down. Someone would call, the hood or whatever, just going down and just talking with people, mingling with people. I found that, having a kid with you kind of helps kind of like make a good intro to people and stuff. So I kind of used her in a way, to reach people. But yeah, I mean, I want her to kind of feel, and I remember my parents did the same thing for me. I want her to just feel, even though she's growing up pretty middle class, I want her to feel a connection to her people, a connection to, service, and understand you're not better than anybody else. Everybody, is our people. We got to just learn how to, work together to better our situation. So I'm trying to ingrain that in her pretty early. I'll be honest with you though, my wife, I wanted to live a little closer to the city, deeper in the city. I had a pastor friend who did that, and because he has small kids as well, and his wife, they ended up moving out of the city, so you have to give that, there's that give and take, there's what I want to do as just kind of, rushing to danger, but I have to consider, my family as well. But my wife understands that she's quite supportive of what I do. And, I will say I've calmed down. I used to, when I was, single, I would just go and just, walk down quote unquote scary neighborhoods and just have no fear, just talk to people, it didn't bother me. But now I have to kind of move a little more, decisively, I guess, if you want to say. So, yeah.
Those experiences that you're talking about, the quote unquote scary neighborhoods,
right?
Can you tell us a little bit more, like, how was that, engaging with that community? That may not be as in tune with the sanitized version of Christianity that has more of the raw, lower class, or, just even, just a struggle throughout their daily lives. And, maybe they're seen as the, Samaritans of Jesus's time.
Yeah. I mean, I've had different experiences, I can put a couple in my book that I wrote, but where, you go see people who you see guns, people on people, you see them smoking or drinking and stuff. But, I see these things and I always say to my wife, it's kind of a joke between us, I say, hey, baby, we're walking down the street. I said, smell that. You smell that smell? She's like, yeah, it doesn't smell very good. I said, no, hold on a second. You smell it. I smell cigarettes. I smell a little weed. I smell some alcohol, that, baby, that is the smell of ministry, like that's a beautiful smell, and that's why I've kind of trained myself to gravitate more towards, what would be considered undesirable. But I believe that's where Jesus went. I'm trying to learn how to, kind of have the reputation of being amongst the, the tax collectors or amongst the sinners, if you would, and I think, when people find me in those spaces, that the people who are there and they find out I'm a pastor, at first they're hiding their beer, hiding their cigarettes, but then they pull it back out and they realize, hey, I'm not judging them. I'm just here to experience, them and to learn, from who they are and get to know them. So,
and that, dear listener, is the smell of ministry. Ministry is not pretty. It smells like cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol. The sanitized version, it's outdated, and we need to get out there and be with those who Christ will seek if we were here. I encourage you to do that. As we close out the conversation, I asked Josh, what are the future plans? And he shared a couple of them with us.
Yeah, we're working on a number of projects. Like I said, the garden is one of those. It's kind of reclaiming the health message in a way. A lot of people who are pushing us to do the garden, they're not thinking health message, they're thinking food, and I'm like, well, yeah, there's a way also to prepare and eat the food, so we want to have that training aspect as well. So there's that, there's a program that I developed some years back called the Lunchbox, which is kind of a take on AYS and Pathfinders and VBS kind of combined in one, but it's a actual its actual purpose is to feed the community, feed kids, So there's just different things that I'm kind of like taking from what we do, who we are, and finding ways to kind of recapitulate it and make it, fresh and new for today and what's needed in our community. Of course, my project that I did with, young black men in the schools and interacting with police officers, the whole intervention that I did with that. So, there's a number of things. And lately, I don't know if I'm going to reveal everything, but we're working on this new concept of church, going beyond church and looking at how churches are not just simply worship centers, but actually spaces of hope and places where we do mission. And so it's not just focused on the 3 hours we spend on the weekend or on Saturday or on Sunday, but we're focused on what are we doing during the week and how are we blessing people during the week. And our time on Sabbath is simply celebrating and sharing the testimony. You have testimony service. People talk about, oh yeah, thank God I found, $5 in my pocket. Like, no, I need testimonies like I helped a young kid get into college. I'm saying? What did you actually do? What did God actually move you to do this week? And so I'm trying to change the narrative of what church looks like. And so that's something I'm working on, and hopefully be able to explain more of that to you at a later time.
So there you have it. That's how Josh has been engaged with the community. We hope that you catch the smell of ministry and that you pass it to your pastor, that you start reclaiming your Adventism, and that you go forth and change your community. As always, we're going to have a final word. So here's Josh's final word.
Wow. What's the one thing I want to say? I don't know. I just say, look to Jesus, man. Everything I do, everything we should do is to literally try to be like Christ. People ask me, why do you go to church on Saturday? I don't tell them because of the Ten Commandments. I don't tell them, because the Bible says so or Spirit of Prophecy says so. I tell them simply, I'm trying to be the best Christian I possibly can. I'm trying to follow the man the best way I possibly can. When I read the scriptures, Jesus went to church on Sabbath, and I'm just trying to follow him. And so everything I do also is geared around that. I'm simply going to the community because that's what Jesus did. I'm simply, feeding people because that's what Jesus did. I'm trying to live my life, and I hope we all try to live our lives in a way that says we're not steeped in Pharisaical, Sadducee tradition. We're simply trying to follow the man who died for our sins and do exactly what he did. And that's, all I'm trying to do. I've been criticized for being not conservative enough, or being liberal, or being whatever. And I said, I'm simply trying to be biblical. I'm trying to be Christocentric, in my approach. And I encourage the listeners to do the same.
You've been listening to Disruptive Adventism. We hope that today's topic helped you to think and change something about your practices, about your faith, about your Adventism. If you want to subscribe, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll be there. And make sure to give us a review if you like what you're listening to. If you want to support, make sure to go to patreon.com/disruptiveadventism. It helps us pay our bills and produce the content that you're listening to. And if you want to socialize, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and hit us up whenever you need anything. We'll be there to support you. Thank you for listening today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.